Welcome back, everybody, to the Flex Success podcast. Today, we're going to teach you how to be less shit at something with someone. Now, for people that are watching on YouTube, they're going to see that someone is Mr. Will Crozier from Nexus Performance. And I'm also, as always, sat here next to my lovely partner, Lizzie.
Hello, everyone.
No, you didn't tell me it was on YouTube as well. Was the last one, the last episode we did, was that on YouTube?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were on the couch. You're on the casting couch.
Yeah, you should have done your makeup if you knew.
I was going to say, I should have my beard. Have you noticed my beard growth is pretty
I was going
good?
to say, this is the thickest I've seen your beards. It's a very Wolverine-y.
It's a bit
I remember we have had discussions about getting past the itchy stage. I've made it. I've made it. I'm into the home stretch now.
Have you moved?
In about 2 years, it might be slightly longer than this. So,
have you moved into the stroke phase, post-itch phase?
as in like where you start like doing these ones?
You start
yeah,
stroking.
but it's mostly neck for the YouTube people out there. It's really annoying. I need this part, but not even you're there yet, and you've been at it for years. So
No, you and I are one and the same. Outside of the, what do you call this?
I would call it the Shannon Knoll.
The Shannon Knoll. the under the lip, I'm bald on either side of under the center part of the lip, and I'm pretty bald even at the top of my face. If anyone was watching on YouTube, that's my jawline. So like my hair pretty much starts on the jawline, just like yours does, Will.
Guys, I'm going to stop you. This is not thrilling content. We're going to move on.
This is what the people want. Come on.
I'm pretty sure people only came here to talk about to hear Will and I talk about our beards.
I don't think so.
This is the beard podcast. The shit beard podcast of that.
I bought a beard comb. This is great.
Dean,
This is great.
No one cares about beards. We're not talking about beards, okay? No more. Now, Will, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to be a public voice. This is your second appearance on the podcast, Will. Your first one was...
elite crew. I'm of the elite crew. There's not many of us.
Yeah, before pressing record, we were trying to think who's come on the second time, and it's only been maybe a couple.
Select handful, that's for
So
sure.
you definitely are part of the elite crew. But it was a long time ago. It was actually in our house when we both lived in the Gold Coast. Stan and I are now in Europe. So for those that haven't listened to the podcast and like, who is this guy with the thick neck talking about beards? Please introduce yourself.
So my name's Will. I am a powerlifter, currently on hiatus due to the opening of our gym, Next Performance Gym on the Gold Coast. But before the gym, we're an online company. We coach mainly strength athletes. We've been at it for about 8 years. We're at team 7 now. So I don't know what we were at last time we spoke, but it would have been probably like 4.
I think so.
So we've expanded since then. We've brought on another nutritionist, PT and gym manager in the gym. So yeah, we work with people all around the world just to get stronger, to get bigger, and to mainly get into strength sports, but not exclusive there. I don't want to say that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Me as a lifter,
Diversify.
if we go into that, I feel weird talking about my lifting now because I feel like a fraud right now. Like I said, the lifting is a little on hold with the stress of the gym, but I still do hold the under 110 all-time Australian powerlifting record. Which is,
And that's 110 kilos in body weight for those playing at home, not 110 centimeters in height.
Or pounds.
yeah, Chad, a bit of confusion.
That's a small boy.
What's that, like 50 kilos?
You would have to be 12.
And can I just say, Will is a fucking lean and jacked 110 as well.
Very modest.
Could get on a bodybuilding stage.
Dean has helped on that journey. Definitely pro. When was the last pro? Not like 11, whatever it was. At 12, at 2019, we worked together to get there, which is crazy. Definitely the biggest, leanest, thickest, juiciest I've been.
Is that how you guys met, through the coach-client relationship?
We
No.
met
We met through
in very
bodybuilding.
different circumstances.
Okay.
I met Dean in my, I don't want to say, no, I was about to say I met Dean in my underwear. Definitely not the case.
This is getting kinky.
I met Dean in the process of bodybuilding.
Okay.
I actually don't remember how exactly we met through.
I'm pretty sure it was at an A&B show in Sydney.
Which stands for
A&B,
Australian
yeah.
Natural Bodybuilding, for those who are unaware.
I'll scoff at that.
Yeah, back in the days.
Yeah, we met through a
Australian meant to be natural
Yeah.
bodybuilding.
natural on the day bodybuilding. We met through a mutual friend at the time. His name was James. I believe you and
Yeah,
James had
that's
spoken a fair bit online. I was working the booth there for Nutrition Warehouse at the time. And then, yeah, I met Will because he was talking to me about his
so
carb-up
at
protocol
that
and
time,
potato.
yeah, at that time, macros were still kind of the cool thing to do. Like people were like, you know, it's not like now, whereas people understand. It's definitely better, way better now. But back then, like macros were like it was new that you could eat non quote unquote clean foods and get in good shape. And so it's kind of that first generation or whatever bodybuilders at that time. It kind of was when it was really being pushed forward. I definitely did it badly because this is something I'm sure you've both spoken about at length on here, but like macros aren't everything apparently. So back then I thought they were. And so the bodybuilding prep consisted of me eating to my macros with foods that were maybe a little bit stressful on the gut, that were a little bit, you know, not thought out near as well as what they could be. And so I didn't get in exactly the shape I wanted to. But yeah, we spoke online with James and then we got there. I remember going and getting coffee when I was as black as a jelly bean.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, you spoke about rack macros there. James Allegre at the time, who's the guy, was very pro-flexible dieting. So much so that I think even at 6 or 7 days out, he would flexibly diet a pineapple and ham pizza from Domino's into his, you know. And James got peels.
Yeah, because it was cool back then. It was cool. That was like, if you were doing that, people were like, shit, yeah, man, like you're eating pizza, like that's so cool. Like it's,
yeah.
Like,
but he was also doing similar things. He was doing like protein fluff and like was pregnant from protein fluff. And like, he was very flexible, like that very IIFYM. So and then, I'd met Will, we went for coffee and he was super bloated and he was telling us how he'd been carving up on an immense amount of potato. And he's just like, man, I just don't know if I can get more in, but my coach wants me to eat more potato for this next half of the show. And James and I were like, dude, we're here having a coffee. Why don't you just swap those carbs for like a Gatorade, you know? And he was like, yeah. And this is a testament, again, I suppose, and like this comes full circle as to the mindset of an athlete who's willing to follow a coach's orders, even if they're not certain that it's the best for them. They just know it's not harmful, though. Like there's nothing wrong with eating potato. You know, there's potentially some advantages here. But Will was like, yeah, that's like a good idea. And then I remember like a couple of hours later, he gets on stage and he's still super distended. And we're like, what did you do? And he's like, I ate the potato.
Because your coach told you to.
It was in the plan.
Yeah.
It's funny, the whole prep was flexible as in like pure macros, nothing else, no advice on veggie intake or all the good things that we do today and you guys little flex. But then for some reason the peak week was written out to like these exact foods. And so like it's kind of stupid looking back on it. Like really. But the whole stupid thing was I was dieting with John Otis Hollywood, if you remember that, him, which wasn't his name. So like how I ended up signing up to a guy who had like a fake online persona to prep me, I don't know. It's just looking like saying that out loud now. I'm like, man, that was so dumb. But somehow it became so.
Yeah. But that was my initial exposure to Will, and then my next exposure was like I remember having this what the fuck moment because you did men's physique, I believe, in that comp. Did you do men's physique?
No, that was bodybuilding. The year before was physique.
Anyway, like a couple months later, I was on a forum watching powerlifters, and there was this ginormous human at 100 kilos with traps that touched his earlobes, squatting 300 kilos. And then I saw the name, and I was like, Will Crozier? What? Like, that motherfucker was like maybe 80 kilos. And then I looked close and I was like, it is Will. And then he showed up in Queensland.
More like 70,
yeah. Showed up in Queensland later on in powerlifting and took some numbers on that, did very well. And then, the rest is history. And that from then, I've only ever known you as the powerlifter. And we've just progressively spoken more and ended up the coach-client relationship.
I'm going to give you the title of the juiciest powerlifter that ever existed. Do you accept this title?
I accept.
Good.
Some other people may not, but we don't care about that.
We only care about what you think of.
He's up there with the juices, that's for sure.
So I went from 70 kilos to 110 kilos in a matter of, I think it was 6 months.
Did you get stretch marks from that?
I already had stretch marks. I just always have. My skin's never liked getting bigger for some reason. But I got just the knees, the shin pumps, the back pumps the inability to walk more than 50 meters during that time was unbelievable. Like I just remember those times being a time of my body rejecting all this weight.
Yeah.
So
well, accepting all of the weight, rejecting how you wanted to feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was so strong in the gym. I was like, fuck yeah, this is sick. Outside of the gym, ain't life.
Can't walk, can squat 300 kilos.
All that matters.
Do you think so? So a question that I want to ask you, Will, given that you have done more than one sport and, you know, you've excelled as an athlete and you've gone through these big changes in such short periods of time, can't talk correctly. What advice, looking back and having time to reflect and going through all these stages, might you have for somebody listening who's trying to be better at engaging with their sport?
Or transitioning in this instance.
Yeah, or transitioning, whatever.
Oh, man, so many avenues to go down. But I think the first one that pops to mind is, this is something I say all the time, but in different contexts, but it applies here as well. It's like the best athletes, the people who are at the top of powerlifting for sure, and definitely of bodybuilding, 100%, I'm sure you would agree, is the best athletes are the best planners, or that work with coaches that help them plan them. Like planning is literally the sport. Like, sure, like we get to go and we watch the guys flex on stage and go like, oh, that's cool, like he's really good. Or somebody squat like a huge weight. But it's been, well, months at least, but, you know, years of kind of stepping things out, periodizing, not only training, but periodizing nutrition alongside it, periodizing life alongside it, periodizing the ups and downs of all that come with that, having some way to keep on moving forward. Like, there's always a way to move forward, always. Whether it's like at the moment, opening the gym, super duper stressful, which means there's much less of a recovery bucket there. I can't recover from near as much training. There's a lot of taken out by that mental and physical stress with that. But so I put the hypertrophy and the strength a little bit on the back burner, but like it's a focus on like trying to be healthier, trying to do other things, trying to move forward in other aspects of life. And I know that luckily bodybuilding, powerlifting, they're pretty low barrier in terms of age limits. So like, I feel like a lot of younger people, especially these days with people getting into the gym at 16, like you want to be a pro by the time you're 18 and then things like that. Like it's really like right now in a rushing moment. And I was definitely the same. I think everybody who has that mindset wants to be the same. But I know powerlifters who are breaking Australian records. I know powerlifters that are breaking world records at 40 something years old. If you look at the Olympia stage, the mean age definitely isn't 20. They're old. So they've been at it a long time. So I think that's a good place to start us on this conversation, is just like be ready to plan shit out on a very long-term scale if you want to be really good, because I can guarantee you all the best people have either are really good planners themselves or have coaches that are meticulous planners for them.
Mm. Yeah. And you've already touched on the point that there's some sacrifices if you want to be really good. So even like walking a few minutes was really hard for you because of your hips and your back and all of that. How or what advice might you have for somebody who wants to be at the top of their game but might not want to make those sacrifices?
As in like sacrifices in general, I would honestly say you're in the wrong place at that point. If you want to be at the very, very top and you want to make no sacrifices, it's not the world for you. Like if you want to go through a bodybuilding prep like Dean is right now and be a few weeks out from comp and just be loving life and going out with your friends or not sacrificing anything, like just living, don't do bodybuilding. Well, don't do bodybuilding at a high level anyway. If you want to go through a comp prep and not have a bad, an angry back or a little bit of a sore elbow tendonitis from low bar squatting and bench pressing a lot, hey, that's part of the process. If you want to make your weight class so that you can be really competitive in it and be, the leanest and biggest, or, like I said, a pro roll, like really, like that prep was meticulous. We had to plan hard to get under 110 on a 2-hour weigh and not have to cut a lot of weight and not sacrifice a ton of performance. Like there was a lot of sacrifice in that prep.
This reminds me.
It's not sacrifice year round, I guess, is what I think you were trying to get to, though. It's not, hey, like you have to be super strict on your diet, super strict on your training, putting up with injuries, not being social, whatever it is, year round. You like we said, back to planning. Hey, I plan this during this phase, really stressful for training. So like, let's not do life events and stuff during that. And then during this stage, I've got uni exams, I've got weddings, I've got whatever. Hey, but that's not a time when I'm going to be training very hard or nutrition, dieting really hard or whatever it is. Like this, if you plan really well, the sacrifices line up. You move forward.
You know what you're going to sacrifice in advance. It's not a shock.
Well, that's the other thing. I think when you don't plan, the perception is that you have to be perfect 24/7.
Yeah.
Because you fear that you're not doing enough because you don't have like a yardstick as to what success looks like.
Yeah.
So then each week you think, I need to do it all. And then when you fail, you feel like a failure.
Yeah.
And then you go back onto it. It's almost like the binge, restrict cycle. Like you're constantly going off and on, off and on, off and on, purely because you haven't set up the expectations appropriately.
The all or nothing mindset.
So, what I was going to ask was like, and this ties into this planning and now even also determining when you can pump the brakes versus push on the gas pedal, even though no gas goes out when you push on the pedal. Do you think you can be an elite athlete and have balance?
In our sports, yeah, absolutely. I think so. They're like I said, they're sports that you can do to later in life. If I was to use you as an example, like wanting to be an elite football, soccer player, like what the time gap you're going to have to be at the top of your game is much shorter because like there's going to be somebody like after 5-10 years, like there's going to be somebody younger, faster coming up and he's going to, like you just can't fight that. That's age, that's biology, right? Like that you lose that pretty quickly. Slow strength, aka powerlifting, and just physique, you can keep around a long time. So I feel in us, we have a much longer time frame. We can have downs and ups and plan that out really well and continually be getting better, continually getting stronger. Like if I felt like if I was in the other sport category, in one of those sports where you're much more finite, they're probably putting their life on hold for that nearly that entire time. You know what I mean?
What do you think, Liz?
I think that for powerlifters and bodybuilders, this saying rings very true. Everything in moderation, even moderation. Because Will previously just spoke about planning, and there's times where you can't be social, you have to make tons of sacrifices, and there is no balance in that point in time. Your focus is really heavy on what you're doing and you're sacrificing everything else. But then other points of the year, maybe the off season, for example, there is some room for balance. So yeah, I guess balance is lumpy for you.
I was going to say phase specific, yeah.
Yeah, phase specific, yeah.
But in the shorter lived sports, Will's arguing for the fact that you probably can't have You
can't have balance, yeah, until you've expired your use by date. And at soccer, that's like mid-20s, right?
Well, that's as an anecdote for me, I remember when I hit 21, which is when I quit playing semi-professional here in Australia, amateur soccer, because I was like, I'm past my due date. Like if I'm not in England now at 20 playing for a club that's paying me money with the opportunity to get into a Premier League division, what's the point? There isn't one. I'm now limiting my potential to do other things in life by trying to stick to this goal.
Yeah.
And it was either make it a hobby or do something else.
Yeah. But maybe I can just speak to all the listeners that aren't competitive or professional athletes listening, because I'm not competitive or professional.
In any way.
I'm definitely not professional.
Now's the time to say penis.
I always do want to play the penis game in a quiet cafe. Anyways, I believe that I personally have found balance through fire. I've learnt by fire because, I have entered the odd competition here and there when I was younger. And I did think that in order to have even a body that was slightly above average, I did need to do everything perfectly. My nutrition had to be on point. My steps had to be exact. I could never miss a training session, blah, blah, blah. But, at the ripe old age of 32 now, I'm just trying to keep a physique that I feel healthy in, feel good in. That's about it, which I think is probably the majority of the people listening here.
Yeah.
There comes a point where you learn a new definition of balance. And for somebody who has never trained, who's never eaten well, they might look at my life and go, that's just way too much. But coming from the perspective of feeling like I had to do everything perfectly, the little luxuries that I have now feels like balance to me. You know, like I still cook 9 out of 10 of my meal. No, more than that. I probably eat out 2 meals a week, you know, and I eat 4 meals a day. So, and that feels like balance to me. I train about 4 times a week, but I used to train 6 days a week, 2 sessions a day. So 4 times a week feels like balance to me. So for me, it's like all a matter of perspective.
I think it's perspective and context specific too, because I think, I say if we just married up relationship and sports intention or athletic intention, just as the 2 things we talk about balance. So can I have balance in my relationship and be a successful bodybuilder? I think if you take and we're classifying that as balance, without the relationship, you can probably pour your heart into it a lot more because you don't have to worry about other people. So you can say, I have balance in that I do everything that I want, but you also don't have to worry about somebody. But then you add a partner in, and now you may still be able to, you could argue that if you maintain the same behaviors, you'd be a better bodybuilder, but you're going to do that at the risk of causing that relationship some heartache.
Yeah.
And I think that heartache that you think you may cause then detracts from your ability to be a great athlete. Yeah. So you need to have relative balance, I guess is what I'm probably trying to say, is like the same behaviors dialed up in an individual with no care for anybody else can't be transferred into another part of life where there are other people to consider.
Yeah, I think that's a really big can of worms that maybe this isn't the podcast for, because there might be people listening being like, what do you mean heartache in a relationship during a prep? I think if you haven't been in a relationship with a professional athlete or a very competitive athlete, people might not understand. But let me tell you, I have considered starting a support group for partners of competitive athletes. It is fucking hard.
We should get Nikki in and have a 4-way counselling session here.
Yeah.
Vent it.
Will and I can just sit back and go, we fucked up.
I've been through that too, Liz, about the whole, like you said, about the trial by fire thing, because funnily enough, when we were talking about that bodybuilding time, during that time, I remember like my fitness pal streak was like 2 years or something.
Yeah.
And like there literally wasn't a day where I didn't track, including like Christmas. I remember like our tradition was, like you said, Dean, earlier, we'll go to, after our Friday gym session, me and the couple guys that we trained with would go to like the pizza capers, but like would bring our scales and like weigh the pizza and shit. And it's definitely not a healthy way of enjoying food, that's for sure. Even though we thought it was fucking great. Because we could see the results in the gym. But definitely, if I look back now, there were definitely sacrifices that came with it. Like I definitely lost friendships, definitely lost time to enjoy during that period. You know, like there were definitely sacrifices that maybe I just didn't realize at the time that I definitely gave up. Whereas if I were to go back and do bodybuilding now, I think a much more balanced approach would actually get me a way better result, because I could like not hold the stress as much. Like I could know that there's going to be ups and downs. I can predict it. That, like you said, you set yourself up for failure in your head. If you have like if I missed like 1 meal of tracking back then, or missed like I did something that wasn't exactly the plan, I'd be like freaking out about it. And I'd be like, shit, like how can I like make up this macro balance? Like, can I take off tomorrow's plan or whatever? You know, like you don't realize it's stressful, but it is stressful. And it definitely impacted my ability to like lose fat, keep muscle, all that stuff back then. So I think about bodybuilding now with a much more relaxed mindset, with a much better approach. Like under you guys, I'd get heaps better results. I no doubt at all. Like I look back on it and go like, fuck, should have just chilled a little bit. Would have been cool.
Yeah, part of the macro tracking mini course that we put together at Flex Success, there's 16 short lessons, but one of them is what to be anal about and what not to be anal about. Because there's definitely like, if somebody needs to be tracking their macros quite meticulously, there's some things that matter a lot, like peanut butter, oils, jams, honey. Because if you're just estimating that being 20 grams off, multiple times a day can make a huge difference to the energy balance. Whereas if you're weighing your parsley, which is something Dean used to make me do in his first prep, or herbs or non-starchy vegetables, fresh fruit, whatever, just once you've weighed it a few times, you know what 100 grams looks like. You can just kind of eyeball it. And if you're 20 grams off, 50 grams off, it's like 3 calories. What do you fucking do? Sometimes you'll be over, sometimes you'll be under. So it's really important to learn from your mistakes, which it clearly sounds like you have, Will, and know what matters and what doesn't.
I used to not want to use mixed fruit bags because I couldn't guarantee that the ratios between the fruits were accurate enough to hit the label. That for sure bothered me. I only started being okay with that this year in regards to this prep. Like now, if my zucchini is 106 grams instead of 100 grams, I don't take that out. Like
6 grams of zucchini. I'm like 0.3 of a calorie or something.
But in the past, I would have. It was like you would remove every little slither until it said 100.0. But it
sounds to me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I was going to say the overarching.
To me like this prep's amazing.
It's a lot easier, like you said,
mixed fruit bags.
You trial by fire. You learn what is necessary to be meticulous about, what you can afford to have more balance around. You're absolutely right in that the balance that I have in this prep around being open to moving more and doing other activities to get my output in has made this far easier than standing on a fucking treadmill and wanting to neck myself within 2 minutes.
Man, that you just brought the memory during my preps where it was like, I remember during the end of those preps, it was like 6 1-hour list sessions on a treadmill or bike or elliptical, and then like 2 HIIT sessions a week.
Oh.
But get this, like back then, steps weren't, I don't want to say they weren't a thing. Like clearly they existed, but nobody fucking tracked it or did it. So like, I remember I was working as like in retail and also doing PTs and stuff at the time. Like I would sit down for like the entire PT session because I was just so freaking wrecked.
Yeah.
So like, even though I was doing all this cardio, it was completely offset by me like doing absolutely nothing outside of that. So like, I thought I was doing the right thing, but again, another thing that I've learned, like, shit, like I could have done that so much easier. Like,
could have walked on the beach or
just
enjoyed a bushwalk.
Yeah. Or you got to use the Stairmaster to get those glutes in.
Oh my God.
So someone then who is a beginner, because we're talking about how we were beginners here, and potentially even more informed beginners than most, because we still had like the interest in reading, and you sought after like what was known as a well-known coach at the time. How does a beginner become a better planner to ensure that they don't have to deal with so many of these problems?
I want to go to the cheat answer and go hire somebody that can help, because that's how I dealt with it. It's maybe not the best advice. I always find that when I lose track in my overall, let's call it like momentum, like I kind of like start getting a little bit slack on gym sessions, I get a little slack on nutrition. I just find that getting me back on track is like finding my lowest hanging fruit, which is always my nutrition. Like I know that like I fall off the wagon there first, and if I get that back on track first, that all the other things like fall in line, and then I start to plan better overall. So like, I don't know where I'm going with this, but I think it's just starting, like doing something. I think if you sit there, kind of going like, where do I start? Like, here's the prep. Like, what am I doing? It's just you just overwhelm yourself. So just start by doing stuff, and then just write out the next couple of weeks. I guess it depends on exactly what the goal is. But
well, I can see the seduction in people wanting to like change their nutrition and their training, get their sleep on track, do everything at once.
Do everything.
Yeah. And I really like your advice of like, just choose something, because then you can build momentum. And if we do try and change everything overnight, that never lasts for long, does it? And it erodes people's confidence in their ability to be successful. Whereas if we follow your advice, Will, of just choose something, then it's easier to do one thing and then add another thing and then before you know it, you're like, wow, this is totally different to the shitty lifestyle that I used to lead.
So starting here, maybe I'm going to do 2 training sessions.
Yeah, I'm just going to exactly.
I'm going to just eat 3 serves of vegetables a day.
Yeah, I'm going to choose leaner cuts of protein.
But because we've been talking about this overarching concept of being better and planning being an integral part of being better, do we think that they should plan ahead and say, eventually I want to get to 4 sessions and eventually I want to, maybe track protein and calories, But are we saying like maybe we could put that like in a 3-month plan, and then we can come back and say, hey, but for the first week, I just want to do this?
Yeah, I think so. And like, I don't expect anybody with, Gen Pop goals to like just get a little bit leaner, just get a little bit bigger, just get a little bit stronger, a little bit healthier. Like, I don't expect you to do what I do and map out 12 months of like where my surpluses and deficits are going to be and what my training phases are going to be. Because like, let's just not ignore the fact that life happens. Like, part of life happens. When I talk about periodization and teach periodization, like in this whole planning process, I will go through and I'll ask, and I'm sure you do the same. It's like, let's plan the wedding here, let's plan uni exams there, and let's plan this there, and like actually build it into alongside the training and alongside the nutrition, and make it actually just work as part of the plan. I don't expect that to happen to people, and people do that. We just know that things are going to come up and plans are going to change, but it doesn't mean that planning is not a good idea. It's just be willing to, divert and to change.
Yeah, write the plan in pencil, not in pen.
Yeah.
Yeah, even preps are the same. Like, even if I have a 12-week prep, like I go like, I was planning on doing, roughly this much squatting at this point, and I'm doing this weight at this point, but I've had a shitty 2 weeks and my knee's playing up, and I know the last sleep is coming to it. So then like we track metrics and we go like, this is working, or this isn't working. So like, let's change the plan. And it's much, those preps, they're definitely planned. Like there's an overarching guideline to it, but they do change. They do change. The methodologies, like the actual programming variables and whatnot change. It's just the overarching principles, the plan.
Yeah, there's a framework with the opportunity for deviations.
So you're being proactive and reactive at the same time. Like, you're being proactive in the sense that you're like, this is when I'm going to take breaks. This is when I'm going to diet, blah, blah, blah. But you're also being reactive to things that might pop up that are unforeseen.
You have to be. Because like, at the end of the day, in both of our sports, that we are, there's an end date. So we can't just be completely reactive and just go like, we're 3 weeks out. I'm not feeling squatting, so let's back off and change direction a little bit like that. Like,
yeah.
There has to be some level of, especially in a prep, it's going to be a little bit more rigid and a little bit more proactive like that. But like, I'll take proactive deloads with my athletes at 7, 8-ish weeks out, just purely because I know I don't want to take a deload at 3-4 weeks out, because it's going to really kind of halt momentum. So like, if I proactively deload there, it gives me 6-7 weeks to build up, and we can reactively up or down training dose in reaction to their recovery. But it's not like I need to completely deviate from the plan, completely deload type thing. I don't want to be that reactive in the prep.
Yeah.
So it needs to be a mixture for sure.
Plus, it's like the plan itself allows you to be reactive, because you can come at the change in your decision-making process with clarity and confidence.
Change still has boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also still within the framework, like if you just did I'm going to start trying to get stronger at 12 weeks out from a powerlifting comp, and then fatigue starts to accumulate at like 6 weeks out, and you're like, oh, no, I don't want to take this just yet. And then you get to 4 weeks out and you're forced to take a deload because you're so tired. Now you're probably thinking like, fuck, have I ruined this? Whereas if you're kind of going along the plan, you're like, fatigue's accumulating here, like, when can I afford to do this? Even though you may deload earlier or later than intended, you're still doing it with some form of like, information, feedback.
Yeah. And to relate it to a Gen Pop person that's maybe trying to lose fat or gain muscle, it might be like, maybe before you get to the point of, wanting to friggin', go crazy because you're so goddamn hungry, maybe before we get there, we do like a little bit of a diet break and not let ourselves get to the crazy levels, I guess. And like, we can chuck it in there, and it's the same sort of concept. It's like, we don't need to right now, but it's just a good idea from a planning perspective to allow us to continuously be moving forward.
Yeah. And so the three of us are all taking individual modules in the STC Fit 1% PT program. For personal trainers listening, you should definitely check it out. Will, you're taking powerlifting coaching, aren't you? Dean, you're taking, I'm taking Gen Pop nutrition coaching. This is something I speak about because you just mentioned for a Gen Pop person, this could apply by them taking, a maintenance week or a maintenance month, like a break from dieting before they snap. This is something I talk about in my module when I'm coaching coaches how to be nutrition coaches. If somebody is tracking macros, it's quite easy to do a maintenance week or even a refeed, like 2 days back at maintenance. Because let's say somebody's eating in a 500 calorie deficit, 500 calories less than they need to maintain weight. We'll just go, cool. For the next week, you're eating back at maintenance calories, add an extra 500 a day. But the question is, not everybody tracks macros. So what do we do if we've set a client up with some sort of, flexible eating routine where they're eating in a deficit? How do we diet break that client? How do we give them a rest before they snap? And there's a few different ways to do it. Some are pretty obvious, like saying to the client, continue eating as you are, but add an extra serve of carbohydrates to each main meal, because we know that we generally want the extra calories in a diet break or a refeed to come from carbs. Or you could say to the person, okay, you've been eating to this flexible eating routine, and every day you've had a budget of, I don't know, whatever you've given the person, 200 calories to spend on whatever you want, chocolate, wine, chips. For the next week, you now have 600 calories to spend a day.
Chocolate, wine and chips.
But you probably would say, if hunger has been extreme, you would advise the person to spend those calories wisely on things that are quite satiating, not on like
potato.
Yeah, like so much potato that you get to exactly. But yes, potato actually is a good one, because if we look at the satiety index, boiled white potato is the most satiating food. So to carve someone up on that for a bodybuilding show, it doesn't surprise me that you felt like that. So there's some ways that we can go about taking breaks as a Gen Popper, which stands for general population, if anyone's confused, without having to meticulously track those calories or those macros. It's not as precise. We don't know exactly how many calories you're introducing, but we know it's at least enough to reduce diet fatigue.
It doesn't need to be as precise either, because unlike what Will said before, the goal for this individual is not time sensitive. Potentially, like maybe they have an event or something, but it's not as time sensitive to the point of you have a competition on X date. You therefore can only afford to take 4 days off. And you have to be
exactly this weight for the competition.
And that is a great representation of general population versus say athlete specific periodization here. Is we may say the athlete has 12 weeks. We want to deload somewhere in the 6 to 8 week out range. But you give yourself a small range. Whereas we may say to the general population, we want to try and diet for 12 weeks, but if we only get to 6 weeks and we have to take a week off, that's okay too, because this is like non-linear, and it's non-time specific. You always have the opportunity to deviate and take a new route, so long as you're still working towards the end destination.
As long as you don't blow out off the rails and head down you're very, very off the path.
And confused.
It's more from a mental aspect.
Yeah. Do you find that often, because just going totally off the rails and choosing a different path, people would take like a cheat day or a cheat meal, and they misunderstand the concept of a break, like a diet break or a refeed, as a cheat meal? Do you ever have clients like that?
Well, I don't handle the nutrition, but I find that probably not as much as we don't get a lot of physique orientated, I guess, clients where we're more working at strength, so I think it's a little less on their mind. With cheats and that, but we don't use those words or anything along those. Anyway, same as you guys, I teach it to be try and incorporate it into the plan, as opposed to deviate off the plan and then treat it as a bad thing.
I don't believe in dirty food, but I do believe in dirty words, and cheat meals are definitely one of them. Now, I don't know how long we've been chatting for, because we had an off recording chat before this. Do you think it's time that we need to do our wrap-up questions, Dean? Because I feel like we could talk to you forever, Will. It's been a very interesting conversation.
And the wrap-up questions always get me. They're always the worst parts of the podcast, because people ask me and then I always never have an answer.
I reckon we should ask Will about his beard routine.
No, we're not going to ask him about his beard routine. Oh, my God.
Now, what about...
I actually
been going for about 45 minutes.
What was that, Will?
I recently purchased beard oil.
I do not care. We are not talking about this.
I got it from Woolworths, though. Apparently, it's the same as the expensive stuff. So,
Okay.
Anyway, just thought I'd give
Thank you
people
for
a bit
sharing.
of a
This is a great tip.
So interesting. Super
Yeah.
interesting.
Just a tip.
Okay. Well, I promise I won't throw any curly ones at you, Will. What is your favorite Bible story? Maybe we'll go with that one. Do you know any Bible stories?
No, actually, no.
All right. What Bible story do you?
No, there is a good Bible story. Ready?
What?
It's the isn't the fish one like a Bible story? Like, as in you can teach a man to fish. Like, no, I was thinking.
No, that's not a Bible story.
No, but I was thinking it was part of the Jesus part where he's like taught. Oh, no,
part of the Jesus part. Dean, you clearly read the Bible.
Yeah, the part where Jesus does good.
I did not
things
plan this conversation.
and just comes back to life or something. Like, I love that part.
Okay.
Got me, you know.
All I've learned is that back in the day they ate a lot less food because if he fed all those people on just bread and fish, was it bread and fish? Bread.
What are you talking about?
Jesus gave people bread.
No, you're talking about manna that fell from the sky, maybe. And there was a community of people that roamed the desert for 40 years, and all they ate was manna that fell from the sky. Is that what you're talking
They
about?
had manners? No, there's a famous story where Jesus gets fish and bread and feeds the masses.
No, he just feeds a party of people. I don't think he feeds everyone. Anyways, this was meant to be a quick, funny story, and it's just turned into a really annoying conversation. So we're going to move on.
That was my intention.
Will, if you had to leave...
What was the story? Yeah, I didn't even hear the funny story. What's the funny? Tell me
Oh,
the
my
funny.
God. Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, both of you.
I planned this, you
If
see.
you had to leave listeners with one takeaway point on how to be less shit, what might it be?
This isn't a funny story. We're ignoring the okay, cool. We skipped it.
No, we're going back to the fun stuff after this. This is the finale of the wrap up of like how to be better in this planning discussion that we've had.
And then we will not be coming back to the funny Bible story.
Not the Bible story, just a funny story.
Okay. How will people be less shit, Will?
Go say the whole question. I missed the first part.
If you had to leave listeners with one point on how to be less shit.
Oh, I mean, I feel like we've been blabbing on about planning the whole time. I mean, like, I feel like it would be an injustice to say anything else but that. So, I mean, like if you are not planning more than your, I don't know, the week ahead of training or the week ahead of nutrition, maybe it's an idea to break out the calendar or the Google Calendar, whatever you want to use. Analog, digital, I'm all for it. But plan some shit out. Get some plans on paper, or reach out to us. We can help you plan.
Yeah. Nexus Performance Gym _gym. Is that what your IG handle is?
NexusPerformance.gym is the gym. NexusPerformance.aus is the online, I guess, component for us.
Okay. Cool.
And if you want to learn more about just lifting weights and stuff, even myself at W Croz.
Cool. Love it. Now, if we are all dying to share a funny story, does anyone have something to share?
I'm keen to hear a funny Bible story because I have no idea where that question was meant to be going.
What's your favourite Bible story, Liz?
No, that wasn't meant to be going anywhere. You said that people ask you questions that you don't know how to answer, and I know you haven't read the Bible.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
So I was just trying to give you...
I get it.
Yeah.
It's not funny now because I didn't get it, but now I get it.
My question maybe wasn't very clear. I think I have read the Bible. I'm definitely not religious, but I've mentioned on the podcast before that my mum as a child pushed me into religious studies for about 10 years. And I think I'm definitely going to offend some religious people here, but I think a lot of it is fucking hilarious because it just flies in the face of logic, and it's extremely sexist and racist, and there's lots of it that you could laugh at, really. And I do definitely acknowledge the great points around morality and things like that, but morality can exist without somebody telling you the 10 points that you must follow and without the fear of eternal damnation. And I'll end there. I'm so sorry for religious people who I've offended, but I respect
it. Okay, that's really interesting, just like the beard stuff. Super.
The beard stuff's super interesting. I have a funny religion-related story.
All right.
So if anybody ever wanted to question that there aren't teachers' pets and or students that get a leg up in school because of who they are and what they do,
This isn't a funny story.
No, especially if you're in sport.
Okay.
I'm a representation of this injustice.
Okay.
And the funny part of it is that I was in a study of religion class.
Yes.
And the morning that we got into class, the teacher said, hey, everyone got your assignments? If not, you've got 50 minutes. And both me and my mate went, oops, we forgot. I wrote the first 50%. He wrote the last 50%. We traded, tidied up each other's language, and then handed them in. I got an A-. He got a C- and had a note on his that says, you have clearly copied Dean, and that you have failed.
Even though you copied him?
Even though I copied him.
Maybe she just didn't catch yours. And
I just think she thought Dean wouldn't do that.
Right.
This guy would. Dean's a good student. This guy's a little shit. And she just attributed him to being the thief as opposed to the fact of it being a mutual agreement.
Everybody's just learned something about Dean. He was a goody two-shoes.
No, I just played sport for a school that took sport more seriously than academics.
Okay.
That's not true. They took both. But if you were good at sport at my school, you got to do a lot more at school.
Okay.
You were the jock. We got it. Okay,
yep.
Cool.
The jock. Yeah.
And now I have jocks that don't fit.
I love it. All right, Will, are you ready for your would you rather?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Would you rather have laser nipples so you can shoot lasers from them at any point in time that you want to?
That's pretty good.
Or would you rather have really strong teeth that you can bite through anything you want?
Oh.
Laser nipples for sure.
What? Why would anyone choose laser nipples over a super straight
Imagine
jaw?
how popular you
Just shooting lasers. I have distance. You know, if somebody comes at me, I have distance.
At a powerlifting meet, as you stand up from a deadlift, the whole crowd, fuck those lasers.
Yeah, hectic. Well, if Dean's going to go to the chompers, why are you choosing chompers then? Why were you so
I just feel like I could do lots of things with them.
What? Like what? What would you chop through?
What shit?
Well, like, yeah, if I needed to, I could just be like, I just break through with this in my mouth. Like, what if, there was a lock on a fence?
I could laser it.
Out. Well, you could.
I could laser. I'll fucking laser that shit.
Yeah, but that means you're going to be topless everywhere too. Otherwise, you're going to burn holes in your shirts. Does he have control of these laser nipples?
I suppose that you could put little caps on them so that you don't burn holes in the people.
Yeah, like the X-Man with the thing over his eyes, the sunnies. Yeah.
Okay, now serious question.
Yeah.
How does he activate the laser? Is it mind control or does he have to pinch him?
How would you want?
I think he has to pinch him. You have to pinch and point, Will. Is he still keeping them? If you had to grab yourself by the teddy and point and laser things off, would you still?
Yeah, I think it's a worthy sacrifice for that ability.
Okay.
I think it's worth it. Do you come up with those? Did you come up with those on the spot, or are they?
I just thought of it.
Excellent. That's your super
skill.
It is my superpower.
I've got a mouth-related would you rather. Now, normally when I make these up, Will, I fuck them up on the spot and they're just terrible. So let me see if I can do this.
Oh, the last two times he's tried to do would you rathers on the spot, they ruined the whole podcast. Yeah.
So I'm trying to make this podcast better.
All right, hurry up.
All right. Would you rather have a Hitler mustache with no teeth underneath it?
Like no front teeth?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the mustache takes up the teeth, or a full mustache but only have two front teeth.
Oh.
We've gone the opposite way. Liz were both cool. Abilities have these are both terrible. Oh man, that's terrible. That is terrible. No, I reckon that I'm assuming that the I'm not allowed to replace these teeth either.
Yeah.
In some way, obviously. I think I have to just go the hip mustache and deal with it because I have to eat at some point.
So you're not choosing the bun.
You could live on Gatorade and jelly and protein shakes.
Yeah, you still have your bottom teeth too, just not your top ones.
Yeah, but you can't chew just with bottom teeth.
You've got Bugs Bunny teeth. I'd go Bugs Bunny teeth.
Would you?
Yeah, because this is my thought. A Hitler mustache is incredibly offensive. That's going to go against you for in a lot of places. And then you've just got a big gap in the middle, which makes it look even worse. Like you're really highlighting the stash. Whereas the Bugs Bunny teeth, you can at least gnaw on things. You can nibble on them,
Yeah. Yeah. I'll just
and you don't have a Hitler mustache.
Cereal.
It'd just be like old person diet where I'm just eating like just slush, just, soggy cereal.
Yogurt only. Wheat Bix only.
The homeless person's diet. And I think that is the perfect place to wrap up.
Beautiful.
Thank you for coming on the podcast, Will. It was very interesting.
Yes, made it number 2. I'll be back for number 3 to I'm assuming there's been no three.
No one's been on 3 times. You might be the first.
I have to make it happen.
I'm back for that, sure.
All right.
I'll get here at some point for sure.
You need to start thinking about funny Bible stories for our 3rd podcast, okay?
I'll invite some Jehovah's Witnesses to the place and they can come tell me some of their funny stories.
Excellent. You should. There must be sexism or racism at the very least.
They're always great to laugh at.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make that. I'll say like, I only want to learn about the parts I have that, please. Please cater. Wouldn't
that be a great question to ask a Jehovah at the front door? But just, I would actually like to learn. So can you tell me something sexist or racist out of the Bible?
I have a feeling I wouldn't be invited back to the clubhouse or whatever they call it.
They're very tolerant people, I think.
The clubhouse.
I don't know. The weekend sessions. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they don't call it churches, so you're right.
Yeah, I don't know what the word is. I forget.
Gosh, it's been 16 years since I have been involved. So from memory, they just call it the community. They go to the hall. That's right. They meet up at the hall. It's not a church because they don't. Jehovah's Witnesses, unlike every other Christian denomination, don't have statues like big Jesus statues on the cross or Mary statues and things like that. Yeah. So it's not called a church because they don't have idols of worship. So it's just a hall.
What an interesting lesson this has become. We did say before pressing record that we're going to end up in another world in terms of deviations from the topic, and I feel like we have accomplished.
We absolutely nailed it.
Yeah.
Probably as far off track as we could possibly be.
Powerlifting and Jehovah's Witnesses, of course.
They go together.
Yeah.
Peanut butter and jelly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone, and thanks for coming on, Will.